faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide.
Good now?
Yeah.
Beyond the Quest may not be suitable for all listeners. You're going to hear real, raw footage of real life first responders discussing anything and everything. You may hear from preachers, teachers, EMS personnel, 911 dispatchers, and more. Nothing is off the table, and as I stated, nothing is edited out. Please bear with us in these early episodes. I promise it will get better with time, as we are just starting this journey. Jokes may be made that some may find offensive. These views and opinions are that of each individual person and not that of the group Slim Chance Gaming or any of our sponsors. If you're easily offended, this may not be the show for you, or then again, it could be. With all that out of the way, let's get started.
Cheer up, Taco. It ain't that bad. I agree. Good morning. Sorry for the delay. You got
Good
Medic,
morning, y'all.
and you got these two slackers, Napkins and Taco.
Listen, I had a meeting and my internet was out.
Likely excuse, likely excuse.
And it's not that I'm not like happy or anything this morning. I'm just feeling a little rough with sinuses.
Excuses, excuses, they say. How is
All right.
everybody? How is everybody?
You know
Uh,
what? I'm tired. T-A-R-D. Tard.
I was gonna say, do you know how to spell?
we let him stick people with needles, folks.
Um,
So I do
and I'm
have
pretty daggum good at it, too.
I did have one thing that I wanted to talk about today, but before we do that, I'm sure all of our invested viewers would like to know if there's any updates with your love story.
Ah, Lord, here we go.
I'm just saying, you left them on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, you kind of caused this.
Um,
Napkins,
there's...
napkins, napkins.
I wouldn't necessarily say there's necessarily updates per se. I did go on a date Thursday. Um, things went well. We went Christmas shopping, we had dinner, and then we just sat and talked for hours. And it was like I was talking to my best friend that I'd known for years. So
That's it.
that's all. That's it. That's it right now. There's more coming soon.
Napkins in love.
Which brings me to we did get some contact inquiries on Beyond the Quest. So
Meaning?
let me pull those up now. Uh, let's see
I don't know what
here.
you speak of.
The first one is from Amy, and it says, "When is the napkin story?" Um, so there's a lot of legal things involved right now, and until those get cleared up, we really can't do that episode. I will just leave it at that.
True.
We will give everyone a heads up beforehand. That way, anyone invested can be here for it, though.
Um, by the way,
And we will
Vet,
let
if
that
you're
episode go as long as he wants.
by the way, Vet, if you are watching this morning, that login you gave me only shows me 2 inquiries. So if there's more, I can't see them.
You only said one.
Oh no. This one is actually going to be for all of us. It is addressed to all of us. And it says, for the name, it says Sheila from Angry Vet Nation.
Woo,
Um,
Sheila!
And it says, do you guys feel that the Arcane series kept in line with the game? Like, as a person who has never played the game, do you think they would still enjoy / understand the show? Do you think that the game adds or takes away from anything in the show?
Okay, so
And then the last part of it, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Taco. The last part of it says, as avid League gamers, would you say that you would agree with the storyline of the show in the way that the game portrays the characters, or did they stray away too much for a somatic approach?
okay, so first of all, you don't have to have ever played the game to enjoy the show. It's really done well. It stands on its own.
Yeah, the show
So
could totally
don't worry
stand
about
on its
that.
own. As far as portraying it pretty well, some of the lures they changed for the show, and they're trying to go back to the game to update them to match.
Yeah, in some ways they nailed things perfectly. Like before the show, it was already in the lore that Caitlyn and Vi chase after Jinx all the time. That's
Right.
their whole thing. So that was fine. But now they've added a whole lot. Like they randomly decided, hey, we're gonna have this whole big ongoing generational feud between Piltover and Zon, and not just a semi rivalry between the cities. They randomly
Right.
decided, on top of that, they were gonna have
Welcome,
Piltover.
Sheila.
They were gonna have Piltover be responsible for a lot of honestly war crimes against Zon
Yeah.
over the past generations, and some of the stuff they changed works. It makes sense, like having Singed become the mastermind between creating some of the other characters in the show. And some of it just doesn't quite fit and doesn't make sense why they forced it in there, having Singed be Oriana's father and her show up at the very end for no reason.
Well, there was a lot of
It
people
just felt
upset
forced.
because like the show didn't match anything with Heimer's lore for the game, but they're trying to change it to update it. Like they changed Jinx's lore to match the show and the game together, so they're trying to go back and get them all lined up because they're wanting to branch off from the show. But did you hear
Yeah.
about the latest speculation about a character in the show?
No, I don't believe I have.
You know the little girl thing
Yeah,
that was with Jinx
yeah.
that sacrificed themselves? They are speculations that is either Ziggs or Teemo
I think that's going way too far.
because the goggles match
The goggles and the hat.
Ziggs
Yeah.
and the
I
hat
get that.
match. A lot of people are saying that it was a sacrifice that ended up putting them in the Yorta world where they'll become either Ziggs or Teemo, and that's the reason they were so close to Jinx because Ziggs' lore matches with Jinx. Napkins, Chad is working on your login. Said hopefully by the end of the episode you can see the rest of the questions. I made
Thank
it.
you,
Oh, I
Chad.
believe that is my wife. Maybe
Baseball boy.
Maybe.
I thought she already had an account.
Yeah, where her iPad's here. So.
Yeah.
Ba-da-ba-bum. So you can't see the other questions?
No, all I can see right now is the last two. They were submitted the longest ago. If it helps you any, Chad, it looks like anything made within the last 24 hours is not viewable. I can see everything else, even your guys' apply for services and whatnot. Just I can't see anything more than 20 or within the last 24 hours.
Random question, Napkins. Is the no longer mystery woman watching?
Oh, she is.
Well, she
Definitely.
better be.
And I just want to give a big shout out to her because not
Oh,
only
Lord,
does
sweet
she
talking.
watch, she also pays attention because she mentioned something from last episode today on the phone. So
Okay.
kudos to
Being
her.
like good,
That
bad.
I don't know if I should call him out on stream like this.
Uh,
But I told her that I was running late. You were having issues getting a hold of Taco, and she said, "How is he going to throw shade last episode for you guys being late to things, and then him be late himself?"
even you were late, so
Yeah, I know.
so you could talk on the phone with her, but you couldn't get on. I don't understand, vet. I need
I
help
was
here.
driving. I was driving.
I need help here. Anything else before we dive into a topic? Well, you shouldn't be able to see that, Napkins.
Able to see what?
Probably the other thing you mentioned.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
If I had to guess, that's what I would say.
Yeah, the applications and whatnot.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I can.
um. So, before we, if you all have topics or not, before we dive into that, I kind of had something I wanted to jump into, especially where your love story is on a delay. Um. So I mentioned last episode that I kind of wanted to dive into, like how your careers and stuff can like change you as a person, especially being dealing with like first responders, and you work not only as the dispatcher and taking calls, but in corrections and things like that. So first of all, I wanted to know, in your all's opinion, um, obviously, do you think that whatever career path you take can change you not only as a person but emotionally and whatnot, and in what ways has EMS or either the corrections or dispatch changed you emotionally, physically, whatever?
So I'm gonna say I'm gonna jump in this one here, and I'm gonna say 100% they can change you. Um, and some examples of that. Whenever I first started in corrections, because the way they go through academy and stuff with you, even in public, man, it makes you paranoid. You're constantly watching around. You're constantly watching doorways. You're constantly noticing things that other people wouldn't typically notice. Um, I'll also say that with the 911 center, and I think any first responder job, whether it be EMS, police, fire, anything really, it changes you in the sense that you have to get callous to a lot of things. Um, eh, People talk about having this dark humor whenever you're in first responders, and I think that you create that as a coping mechanism for yourself because of the things that you have to see and the traumas that you have to go through on everyday jobs. Um, so and I almost I'm gonna take it even a little bit a step further and say that I would almost say that it starts almost stripping empathy in a way, if that makes sense. Like last couple episodes, we've really talked about like the drug abuse problem and stuff. You know, a normal person that's not in the first responder field, they are probably really empathetic and don't understand how a medic or an EMT can be so calloused towards somebody going through addiction. But you guys are the ones on the front lines going to the same exact people every single day, multiple times a day, and eventually you're going to start to lose that empathy for certain things.
Right.
Um, yeah, I would say, at least in my experience, the biggest change is what little empathy I do have toward other people tends to disappear on the job. And it is, like you said, because we're seeing the same people over and over and over. And it's often for something that they could prevent very easily.
Napkins. Chad says try now. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like, for example, I know we had the commenter talk about how, they believe addiction's a disease because people feel like they have to have that fix to get better. Well, there are programs and places in place that if they feel that it's that big of an issue and they really want help, they can go and they can sign themselves in and they can try and get that help. They willfully choose not to, so they can keep getting that fix, though. And at one point in time, sure, I probably felt some empathy for them. Like, man, I hate this. They really want to be better, but they're just not getting there. But now, going on 8 years into it, it's no, just they're a waste of resources that could be better spent helping people in real need.
Right.
And I know others view that as callous. There's even people I work with who feel like I have no empathy toward certain groups, and
So
I
do you
don't
think
argue
when
with
you
them.
get to the point of you feel no empathy and whatnot, is that a sign that you step away, or is that just like a common thing?
I think it's a common thing because honestly, with the low pay rates within this field, most can't just step away. They're
Right.
not going to find anything to fill that void because despite what you'll hear from politicians, the job market is not great.
Right. Okay. Well, before I give, my point of view or whatever, and we advance further in this, I wanted to read a couple things. During our delay waiting on napkins, um, I did reach out
The
to,
internet was out.
I reached out to a couple coworkers. One answered me back, and I was just trying to get, their perspective on some things. And which, a couple of them mentioned that they would be really interested in trying to come on the podcast with us, one episode to try and discuss some things, which I think would be a cool idea. Um, let's see, one of them, I would say that any job, but especially EMS, has changed me in good ways and bad ways. Obviously, I'm more cynical after working in it for a while, but I would say as an EMT, my mental health was taking a toll. But now that I've hit ALS, I feel that I actually can help people more. An example would be like on a run the other day, I had somebody in cardiac arrest and was actually able to get ROSC for the first time, and I actually feel like I made a difference. Um, there's this one article. Golly, that's bright. Ugh. Let's see. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Because some of these that I read, they nail a lot of it. But okay, this is the one I really liked. He said, "Has it changed me? I eat fast. My anxiety is through the roof. I can't smell bleach without thinking of the horrible crap that I've had to clean up with it and the cause that caused the said horrible crap. Sometimes I wake up to tones that aren't even there while I'm at home. Some days or weeks I just suck. Sometimes I'm just stuck in general and I don't know how to cope with things, so I try and do whatever I have to." Said hint, dark humor, they say. I think less of people right off the bat. If they haven't done the job, especially, I refuse to go to the hospital for anything myself. I get extremely irritated and angry when people refuse to take their prescribed medications because they just don't like the way they feel on it. And I don't understand how to function in the corporate world. Um, my boss tells me I'm kind of like a bull in a china shop when it comes to a formal business like meetings because I don't have a filter anymore, and not from the lack of trying. I have an overwhelming amount of hatred for people who are severely obese. Pros, well, I have the skills to keep my brother alive when he overdosed on heroin, and a lot more confident in myself. My team thinks I'm a great leader, which I attribute to hurting EMTs during codes. My stress levels are never over a 3 out of 10, and I get a yap to whoever will listen to about the good times in EMS because, believe it or not, there are some, and I realize the value of therapy now. I left EMS over a year ago, and while the process of has much has blah, adjusting to just how much my mental has changed, I couldn't be more happy with my decision both emotionally and financially and physically. To say that EMS does not take a toll on your body would be crazy. Our backs go out and are ticking time bombs. Our knees are absolutely killing us, but yet while bone is grinding bone, we do the job and we keep our mouth shut about it unless we're around our fellow coworkers. So, my point of view, reason I brought this up, um, because we've mentioned before, especially when it comes to EMS, I think I've mentioned on the podcast that when you lose compassion for people, it's kind of you're hitting burnout and it's time to step away. Do I think that it can change you? I think it does 100%. I was always the quiet one, never would say anything, and then when I got into EMS, it forces you to kind of step out of your comfort zone, and you have to adapt with it. I feel like it's changed me in some good ways that I'll speak up and stand up for myself, and before I never would. I'm more blunt and honest than I ever was. Physically, it's killed my body.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
do I regret doing it? No, I don't. I was never one that actually stuck with something. I would have these ideas or hobbies I'd want to do, and I wouldn't stick with it. But when I got into EMS, I found something that I actually like. When you get into EMS, and it's probably the same for other professions, I would assume, but you know, especially the hours you work around here, your 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever, you're living with these people and they become a second family to you. And it's just like any other family. You got some you like, some you don't. And it's just a bunch of misfit people because not everybody's made for EMS. And you just live with each other and they become like family. And my thing that I wanted to bring up with this, like I finally found a career that I felt like I was making a difference, especially when I went from a basic EMT to a paramedic. And your scope of practice opens up so much, and you can do so much more for people. And there's a lot of calls that I went on that I felt like I made a difference. And there's a lot of calls I went on that I still felt completely useless. And you all were talking about losing empathy for you know like the frequent flyers and stuff, and I think that's a real thing. And I don't think a lot of people understand like how EMS has to cope with a lot of things, because I feel like it's also changed me to an aspect of um, I think my PTSD has went up a lot and more after I got out, since I've not been at work, but my anxiety stays down more. But in stressful situations or emergencies, like with the kids, if they get hurt, I don't panic. I don't freak out. Nothing's an emergency until it's a legit emergency. And to me, a legit emergency is if it's a matter of life and death now. That's how I view everything. I look straight for the worst possible case scenario and I work backwards from there. Um, the guy mentioned in that comment on that article about better at problem solving and thinking outside the box and things, and I feel like that's a real thing. I feel like EMS forces you to be able to do that. I mean, you're going 75 miles down a four lane trying to work a code, and you have to be able to adapt and roll with the curves and get your sea legs so you're not flying all over and getting cubbied into the wall, which has happened a couple times. But my big question, because I do feel like it changes you in bad ways too, because I think losing the empathy, like when you go on a DOA and this family's tore up, and that was their grandpa, or something that passed away, and to EMS you want to be there and have empathy for them, but at the same time this is just another typical call, and most of the time it's like a conspiracy saying in EMS, they come in threes, so you're just waiting on the next one, and a lot of people think that you're heartless in it, but you have to be able to go. Once that call's done, you block it out and you move on to the next one. Doesn't matter what kind of call it is. A lot of the bad calls, especially dealing with children, I had to take like a 10-minute break, and I'd have to call and talk to my kids just it helped me be able to work through it. Um, but my thing is, so, and it may be because now that I'm finally getting some therapy in and trying to get better because things are trying to get rolling. I I feel like I'm not making progress with it, and I'm wondering if it's my body's just literally giving out on it. So if you have like a career or a job that you feel like you really enjoy, but there's just you can't do it anymore. How do you cope with that? How do you transition and hang the boots up?
I couldn't begin to tell you about that. I mean, you know as well as I do that, like the article said, my back is a ticking time bomb now. My doctor's already told me that twice in the last year. But I can't see myself doing anything else but what I do currently because it fits. I know I'm not wired like a normal person. I've told that to others, and and Angry Vet Nation says try it now, Napkins. And EMS was just the right fit for the way that I'm wired. It works for me. I can relate to hearing the phantom sirens when you're home.
Right.
That along with what's the thing called when you have the ringing in your ear, tinnitus? That
Yeah.
along with it, that's half the reason I don't sleep like a normal person does. Why I can function on an hour of sleep at a time. Uh, Most of the
I think
medics I've
EMS like just it ruins you from being able to do a 9 to 5 job. Like you legit get insomnia and your sleep schedules are crazy and it's hard to adjust back to a normal sleep schedule, let alone trying to be able to feel like you're working a normal job anyway.
yeah, I mean, there's just a lot with it that people don't realize. There's medics I work with on the regular who their favorite thing about working with me is I don't get worked up even when we have a patient who's dying. I don't react or anything. It's just, oh, okay. And I do what I can for them. And then I get us to whatever facility we're going to as quickly and safely as possible. And unfortunately, that's one of the more difficult aspects of the job is for some reason the general public does not understand when they see flashing lights and hear a screaming siren. Hey, maybe I should slow down, get over, and come to a stop. They think I can beat this.
Right.
And they actually create more of a hazard for us than our own driving.
Well, I know like on this article there is a ton of comments on here and a lot of them um they kind of have the same thing going through it. A lot of them are saying, it helped with my anxiety, but my PTSD is worse. My mental health, I struggle with depression. Um, a lot of them say I'm a lot more defensive of driver now. Um, but one of the comments on here, I kind of think it would help give a little bit more clarity to, especially like on the first episode, when we had somebody reach out because a lot of people thought we were just sounding callous about everything, but like we had said before, unless you've worked in this field, but they make a comment at the end of if at the end of
Yeah.
their little thing, and they said overall I wouldn't change a thing, but I have to say since working in EMS, my faith in humanity hasn't decreased; it has absolutely plummeted.
Fair, fair.
And
Overall,
I get
there are
that,
more people that you definitely, which I know part of that too is the fact that we typically see people at their worst as a given. It's just kind of part of it. But at the same time, it's also kind of one of those things where we occasionally do see the best in people too.
Right. See, I think it one thing that hurts EMS because it's a dying
Oh yeah.
career. I mean, it's a dying breed of people. No one wants to do it. You don't get one of the comments on here made a comment of, I'm basically I have to go through all this and deal with all this crap. Yeah, I get paid less than somebody that's working at McDonald's, and no shade at them because they deserve to make a living wage too. But after going through school and literally carrying people's lives in my hands, and then all you do is get treated like crap.
Oh yeah. EMS is treated
The redheaded
as the,
stepchild of first responders. I've heard it since I got into it, you don't really grasp it until you actually start working it.
yeah, because true EMS is not what you see on TV. It's not
Right.
like Chicago Fire or 911 where you're working hand in hand with the fire department and you go on all their calls too. No, true EMS is you're working for a private company that's there to make a profit. They don't care about their employees. They don't care about
And
anything
everything
except for
gets
making a dollar.
everything most of the time, especially around here, it doesn't matter if it's police, fire, whatever. It's dumped off on EMS.
Oh yeah. Like around here, it is part of the law that if it is a psych call, unless they are physically injured or are reporting that they have taken X amount of whatever harmful drug, EMS is not supposed to be involved. Instead, what happens every single time is we need EMS, we got a psych patient. They say they want to hurt themselves.
Well, my thing is, so I've also heard this said since I first started EMT class is, EMS isn't made for everybody, but
Yeah.
if you are because you can't leave it. You will always come back to it. And
That
so
not to
my thing is like if that's true and I'm say my body is not going to get better, like how do you cope with stepping away from a career?
um I will say that honestly, I don't know really how to help you here, but like for me personally, yes, I was a 911 dispatcher, I was a corrections officer. Of everything that I've done, I have never had as much passion as I did for 911 dispatch. And if I could find a job where I could in 911 dispatch where I could actually make decent at it or at least a livable wage at it,
Right.
I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Well, see, that's one reason that everybody gets burnt out in EMS. I mean, most of them, if they're not working 90 to 120 hours a week, then they're having to work two different services just to make ends meet.
Yep. Well, I
Um,
mean, the medic I work with, he works a total of 72 hours with us every 2 weeks, and then he works an ungodly amount of time for a hospital during
Yep.
that same time period. Uh,
I
I have to say I'm blessed because right now I can make it working my minimum hours of 48 every week, but
Right.
there's been times in the past I couldn't do that. I had to work 96 or 120 a week just to be able to pay my bills.
Yeah, I remember working the 120 hours a week, and you just when you're actually home, you're just a zombie. And then I mean, most of the time during that 120 hours, you're not getting sleep anyway, so you literally have to function off caffeine and nicotine and try and make the best of every situation. But what was you gonna say, Napkins?
I was just gonna say whenever we're off this specific topic,
Hmm.
it would probably be a good idea to transition into these questions if you guys are cool with it, just because some of those questions touch on this very exact topic.
Yeah, that's fine. We can
Go for it.
throw it out.
Not all of them. They are kind of all over the place. So in no particular order, we're gonna go with Timothy from Angry Vet Nation, which says, "What's one call or scene you will remember for the rest of your life?"
Mm, I have
Well,
two.
before you give those, I want to at least outline something for them that I appreciate. They ask one that we will remember and not the typical, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? Because that tends to trigger us, whether knowingly or unknowingly. So thank you for wording that in a better way.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. Like the most memorable would probably be the most dramatic things that I've seen. Um,
Often.
one of them was right before what actually kind of pushed me into trying for sure get my paramedic. Um, there was a little 8-year-old boy. He had climbed this pool ladder and fell in the pool. And when the parents got him out, he wasn't breathing. We coded him all the way to the hospital. And from where I was working at the time, I mean, that was a 45-minute drive, let alone. We had like I think two or three paramedics in the back trying to work on this boy. We got him back a couple times. Got him to the hospital. They ended up deciding they was going to transfer him out. He didn't make it all the way to facility he was supposed to go to, they had to divert, where he ended up not making it. And what made it most memorable, and it was a big lesson to me too, because there was a lot of people at work that wanted to go to the funeral home, and I was like, that would be something I kind of want to do. And then when we got there, they were really grateful. That was one thing that made it memorable, was because of how grateful the family was toward us for trying, because you don't get that a lot. But they had a little toy ambulance and stuff in the casket with him, and it was something I'll never forget, because for a long time I couldn't deal a whole lot with calls that dealt with pediatrics. And then probably the other most memorable one, and it's one reason I don't hardly touch my phone when I drive, is a 16-year-old girl with just her permit. She was trying to text her mom to tell her that she was on her way home, and she hydroplaned, and it was like a 4 or 5 car accident. And there was a car that had a grandmother, a mom, and a kid, and the mom just wanted to know how the kid was, and the mom was the only one that you were able to do anything for, and trying to keep them calm while you can work on them. And just because, having kids anyway, um, it's hard to wrap your mind around what they were feeling and going through. And whenever she realized what was happened, just seeing, she just didn't want to live. I mean, she just gave up, and you're trying to help her and trying to talk to her while you're helping her of, don't look over there. And she was hysterical, and it was completely understandable. But trying to explain to her that something good could come out of that is a hard thing to do, and trying to keep them calm to get them to the hospital. And they just, I mean, it was one of the most traumatic things that I'd seen as far as car wrecks and stuff go, but one of the most memorable, because it's hard to understand how you help somebody in those situations. And it was one of the biggest lessons for me of, it doesn't matter how quick you get there. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job. I mean, there's some things you just can't help, and there's some things you just can't fix.
Yeah. For me, and some of these will be a little bit rapid fire. I don't know what turned differently for me whenever I got into it versus you. There for a while, you all may remember in our family chat, I was sending updates of my weekly PSA announcements of ridiculous things I was encountering. I once went on a call where an elderly woman had went off all of her medication despite her daughter's arguments not to, and in the middle of the night somehow decided the best thing she could do was use bras as a bungee cord to try and jump out of a 12-foot window. It left her unconscious. We found her in the yard, completely fine, not injured at all, uh, the next morning. That was an interesting one. There was the guy who was riding a bicycle and hit a guardrail hard enough it threw him down a 20-foot embankment into a creek, and then tried to tell us he was hit by a car, and we're like, dude, your bike's still in the guardrail. Um, there was also the one where the guy had OD'd on something and was getting relief from whatever was going on with him by flopping like a fish on his back. I went on a call where a young
If you
girl
haven't
had,
seen the meth aerobics, you've
oh yeah,
not
those
lived.
are a real thing.
You've not
Went on
lived.
a went on a call where a guy had given some young girl some unknown drugs and then left her with his family and took off, and his family called 911. They were hiding in a church next to their trailer when we arrived. And when I tell you that the EMT I was working with on that particular call was green, you have to understand she hadn't been in it very long. This was one of her first calls on her own. And this woman is acting possessed. And that EMT swore up and down to me that she believed the devil was climbing out of that woman to eat her. Um, and then one that to this day I still cannot explain to you. A 18-wheeler coal truck went over the side of the road down toward a river. The only thing holding the cab to the trailer were the air hoses. The driver climbed out of the cab, up those air hoses, and got back on the bank, and the only injury he had was a dislocated finger. At first, he thought it was broken. He popped it back into place, and it still worked just fine. He said, I just dislocated my finger. That was
I will
it.
say that's one thing that surprised me about EMS. You know, a lot of the car wrecks you go on, no matter how much damage is on the car, a lot of times people get really lucky, man, when they get out of there because they've just got, some scratches when they don't really comprehend how bad it could have been.
Yeah, and with any kind of car wreck, whether there's major injuries or not, you're going to hurt the next day or two, anyhow. Your whole
Right.
body is. But yeah, to this day, I still point to that particular cause. That's evidence to me that God definitely had his hand involved there, because otherwise, the dude should have ended up in the river, or he should have ended up with a broken leg or something.
Right.
Um, for me, the most memorable will probably be my first CPR call at the 911 center, which was a 6-year-old accidental drowning. Um, that's one that just stick with me. Okay, moving on. Jordan from Angry Vet Nation says,
I like your name.
Medic. It says, Medic, you mentioned before that you have a wife.
Yes.
As first responders, they say it is very hard on marriages and relationship. Does your wife support your paramedic career?
When I met my wife, she absolutely hated EMS. She still does not like EMS. But she did. See, that's one thing, especially like hospitals in EMS. Like hospitals, they hate EMS because they think that we're crappy and we're not trying and this and that. But whenever we got together, she saw my side of EMS. She's like, "Hey, do you know if a truck's coming anytime soon for this inner facility?" And I'm like, "We have 3 trucks on the road, and we have 3 911 calls already waiting while we're all on 911 calls." So there's a lot of aspects that she got to see that a lot of people don't understand about EMS. Like you don't have all the resources that everybody thinks you does. Like Taco mentioned earlier, of it's not like it is on TV. Of you have somebody that can always be there when majority of the time you're constantly during the day, and you would be able to relate to this napkins with dispatch of them having to reach out to separate counties of, hey, can you come help us out? We are getting absolutely slammed and killed right now. Um, she was by far the biggest supporter of me with medic school. Um, I wanted to give up a few times, didn't think I could do it, and she was the one that was, pushing me. You don't give yourself enough credit, and you can do anything you put your mind to, type deal. And constantly, if I had a bad shift or was going through crap at work, and she was the one that was like, you're one heck of a paramedic. You got to give yourself credit. You done what you could, type deal. So by far the biggest supporter that I've had dealing with EMS.
Moving on. Jeremiah from Angry Vet Nation. Says for the group. Do you guys? I've always heard. Sorry, I skipped a line. I've always heard that it takes a certain kind of person to get into the first responder field. Do you guys believe that that's true? Can anyone be a first responder, or does it truly take a certain type of person?
I think anybody can get into it, but not everybody stays, and that's one reason EMS is in almost any first responders are dying out because some people just aren't cut out for it, and probably going to get a lot of flack on this, but especially with people nowadays, I'm so offended, so easy type deal. You have to have thick skin when you get into EMS for sure. That I can say that from personal experience. Other first responders, I would assume it kind of goes hand in hand, but I mean, if you don't have thick skin, you won't make it anyway in EMS
Oh yeah.
because they will chew you up and spit you out. I mean, people, when I got into EMS, it was literally like a brotherhood that you had. I mean, we had more crews than we did trucks. So when you come in and like say you just got off a run and you come back with your lunch and the tones drop and they drop a call, there would be other crews that would be like, "Hey, we'll take this one. You stay and eat." You know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. And then at some point it turned to I'm going to screw you over the best way I can because that's how we do things. And I don't know why it all switched that way, but if you don't have thick skin when you get into EMS for sure, and people will absolutely walk over top of you, and you have to. That was one thing that EMS really helped me with being able to just be blunt and honest and stand up for myself because if you don't do that, they will constantly walk over top of you until you're just like, yeah, I'm done with this, and you just leave.
Yeah, I tell all new students we get doing ride time, look, this isn't for everybody. You have to have something different about you to make you stay in it and make you last. And there's nothing against you if you can't do this job. It's just one of those things that's not for everybody.
Right.
Between the hours, the stuff you see, and being able to cope with that and deal with your coworkers, it's just not something everyone can do. Like you said, you have to have a thick skin to you. You have to be able to tolerate stuff that you'll hear that at first you're going to think that is the worst thing somebody could possibly be saying right now. And then, you're in it for 2 or 3 years and you're the one saying that.
Right. Like, and you don't
It,
realize so much of how you adapt with it, really.
no,
Like I had worked in one county and probably about a year and a half before I switched to a different county, and I ran into somebody that I worked with before a couple years later, and they were like, "I remember when you were just this shy, backward kid, and you wouldn't even hardly say a word, and you stayed in the bunk room, just not talking or being around anybody, and now you just seem like you don't give a crap." And I was like, "Well, because I kind of don't."
right. Like, if anybody were to ever record the conversations we have at work when it's just us, they would either A, be pushing for us all to have evaluations by a psychiatrist, or B, they would be calling HR so quickly that their head would be spinning.
Right.
Like, and it's not always that we're intentionally trying to say or do things that would be offensive or try and get people in trouble. It's just part of it. When you get to the point that you're coping with things and you've been changed by the job and stuff, you just kind of do it. You don't think about it. You don't realize you're doing it. It's just there.
Right. One thing I liked about EMS too, and if you have to be able to get along with your partner because you don't have a boss over your shoulder constantly all day. I mean, most majority of your shift, it's just you and your partner in that truck. And if you can't get along with them, you are going to be so miserable. Believe
Oh,
me,
yeah.
I know. I had one
Yep.
partner I could not, I mean, we just didn't jive. It didn't matter. I would get through the shift fine, but when I would come home and walk through that door, my wife was like, Oh my gosh, you've got to get a new partner. You are the most hateful person in the world right now.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, I've been there
well,
too.
For me, I feel like anybody can get into any job.
that
I
is my
mean,
wife, y'all. Sorry.
I think I think anybody can get into any job, but I think that that's where the toxicity of the job comes into play. If their heart isn't into it, then they're going to become the toxic player that's out to destroy everybody.
Well, I mean, you also have just, and I think it's probably at every station. You have some people that are just they just want to stir crap up because they love drama, and that's
Oh
one
yeah.
thing that I learned pretty early in EMS is my thing is I graduated high school, a long time ago. I don't want to be back in high school, and you have certain people in EMS around here that I know for sure, and it's just they love drama, and I hate drama.
Oh yeah.
And
Um,
you have those people probably at every job, but at the same time, it's kind of like grow up.
yeah, on that note, I'll share one story without giving names, but we had a transfer pending one night, and the crew that was up for the transfer were throwing a fit about it. They'd spent 2 hours trying to refuse this run, whining, acting like a child throwing a temper tantrum.
Right.
And the medic I mostly work with got fed up with it and went in to the bunk room where they were at whining about this run and said, since you don't want to do your job, I'll do the job because I'm not a child. It's time to grow up and do your job like an adult.
Yeah,
And we took the run.
I've had well, especially when I wasn't even maybe 6 months into EMS as an EMT, and you had some paramedics that just they thought because they went to school longer and got paid higher, they didn't have to do as much work. And finally, when it boils over so much, I was just flat out like, if you think I'm gonna go do everything while you sit on your hind end, that's just not happening. And one thing that I mean, it was another thing that kind of made me think, do I want to go further into this career? And my thing that got to me was I want to not only be able to make what money I can at this to have a living at it, which you still can't as just a paramedic working regular hours. You can't do it. It's not possible in EMS right now around here. But I wanted to be able to say, I furthered my scope of practice to be able to do more for people and do what I can in the back of that truck because so much of early in my career I saw paramedics and people that just they didn't give a crap.
Which I could tell a story on one of Napkins' favorite former coworkers too about his last shift on a truck. It was 20 minutes before my shift was supposed to end, and he was being toned out for a relatively close call. An elderly female had fallen and couldn't get up. They thought her hip might be broken. And I went and towed him because, he was supposed to be up for the run. I was supposed to be leaving. And I was like, dude, you got a call. He starts screaming, it's not his effing run. He's not doing other people's job for him. I went and woke a random employee we had up who didn't have a partner at the time, said, hey, you're getting on the truck with me. We're going to take this call. I walked back in there and said, if that's the way you want to be about doing your job, it's a good thing you're leaving this field. Good riddance to you. And we took the call. When I got back, that particular employee had suddenly got sick and clocked out and went home.
I
Um,
think one thing that kills EMS and probably other careers, and I keep saying that because EMS is all I've known for the last 10 years. Uh, is you always have some bad apples anyway in anything, but you have to have. I always looked at it as you have to have at least some form or at least a bit of compassion or wanting to help people, and that's how it starts. But so many people lose it so quick, and like you said earlier, Napkins, you get so callous that to them it's more aggravation and a hassle to go do a run than it is to do your job. I mean, I've done transfers. I've been up 48 hours with no sleep, come back from, a 2.5 hour transfer one way for the third time in a row to a fresh crew coming in, and because they didn't want to work with a certain person to go on a transfer to the same place I'd just come from for the third time, and I'm like, I'll just go do it. And they're like, well, are you sure? Can you stay awake? I'm like, what does it matter? You're on the clock. You have a job to do. Do it. It's hard to believe that so many adults can be so childish, but you see a lot of it in EMS.
Oh yeah, a lot of them have never grown up.
Yeah.
So we do have about 6 or 7 more questions to get through, but before we continue,
Before you give
I
your
do want.
shout out, I want to transition into your shout out. I asked the question earlier of how you cope with, if you have to step away from a career that you really enjoy. And I know there's other fields or ways you can stay in EMS but not be on the truck. But even though being on the truck was what I enjoyed the most, I want to say a huge thank you to Angry Vet Nation, because like when I couldn't go to work because I got hurt and stuff, being able to stream and things was my way of coping, my way of having feeling some purpose. And Angry Vet Nation's making that a possibility for us, and that's a huge huge blessing to me.
Well, that works. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Of these 6 or 7 questions, I think there's only 2 or 3 that continue to deal with EMS, so we'll go ahead and touch on those first. I skimmed through them while you guys was talking.
That's fine.
Um, the next one is from Sarah from Angry Vet Nation, and she
Sarah!
says, she says, everyone talks about a specific call or moment in their life whenever they are a real American hero that it just really clicks that this is what they're meant to do. What was that call that let you know that you had made the right choice? If there wasn't a specific call, what moment in your life just made you think that you wanted to be a first responder?
Well, when I first became an EMT, I was especially just doing it in the right time. At first, I was like, I don't know, there's some weird cats here. I mean, like I said, I was really shy and didn't talk a lot and whatnot. And then a lot of times in EMS, you have some people that just they don't shut up and they're over friendly, and it was weird for me to kind of deal with. But my first ride time, uh, I was with 2 EMTs, and we went on this call, and it was a refusal. The house was disgusting and nasty, and they warned me before I got there. I hate feet. This guy had some disgusting feet and toenails that came like way out and curled down and would scratch your forearms when you're holding the cot. It was disgusting. But like I said, it was a refusal, so we started leaving, and one of them that was doing my ride time was talking to me like, and they were mentioning, this is what I hate of, why even call if you know you're not going to go? Why call us out there whenever somebody could need us somewhere else? And I was like, she's not wrong. And we were probably about 25 minutes away from where we had left that residence, and tones drop again. They holler at us to go back to the same exact place. Said they think he may have changed his mind. And then when we get back there, and he didn't change his mind, he just quit breathing. And we that getting thrown straight in ride time. Hey, you're finally getting on a truck, and then you get thrown into this, and like you're gonna have to help work this code. You're gonna have to do these compressions. You're gonna have to help bag this person and whatnot. And I felt like I was actually being able to do something to help somebody after a long time in my life of just feeling like I was screwing everything up. So I felt like this is what I could do. This is what I feel like I'm fitting in, and I can make a difference.
I can relate to the ride time story. I actually had a code during my ride time as well, and I actually reported the paramedic and EMT who worked that code because both of them failed to do their scopes of practice on helping that patient. Uh, it was a 15-minute transport time, but 15 minutes of doing CPR will absolutely kill you. And the EMT who was also working it didn't understand how to use the King LT correctly and was essentially suffocating the patient. And I'd been doing CPR for 10 minutes straight at this point and told them switch. They took over compressions and I manually opened the airway to bag the patient. And they go, "How are you getting air to move?" And that told me right then there are people in this field who
Just
don't
don't
care about
care.
their skills.
Yeah.
They don't practice them. They don't know anything about how to do their job. And it told me at that moment, okay, well, you absorb information in a way that doesn't make sense to others. At least in this, you're going to be able to use that information. And I have been able to on multiple occasions. And I'd say one of the few calls that really cemented to me that we were making a difference was me and the medic I normally work with got sent on a call for a pregnant woman who was 32 weeks pregnant. That's all we were told. We get on scene to find this woman completely naked, standing next to a bed. And my partner's like, honey, what are you doing? She goes, I feel like I need to push. He's been on multiple pregnant calls and he thought, it's first time mom. She don't have a clue what she's doing. Well, if you feel like you need to push, you push. I just got the stretcher set up and I hear him, go get me the OB kit out of the truck. So I have to run down these rickety stairs off of this porch that everything is suspended literally by cinder blocks and 2x4s and get the OB kit. And sure enough, this woman had given birth and it was an interesting one for sure. But I didn't, panic or overreact or anything. And my only thought about the whole incident was, hey, if we hadn't been there, that child may not have made it. So
Right.
at least I know we're making a difference.
Mine's not really as exciting as that. I worked in EMS dispatch for 3 or 4 years actually for the same company that both Medic and Taco work for, and I really enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, I loved my job, but at the same time, I felt like I could do more, which is why I got into the 911 side of things. And as I mentioned previously, I would 1000% still be a 911 dispatcher if they actually paid a livable wage around here, but they don't. And just like with any other first responder job, they expect you to work all these crazy hours, but they don't want to pay for it.
Right.
So, really, like, not, and I'm not meaning this in any disrespect whatsoever, but if you are a police officer or a firefighter or an EMT or a paramedic, you can work how Medic talked about earlier, like a 48-hour shift, and you still have got all week if you need to either pick up more hours or you need to pick up a part-time job or whatever, if you have that much passion that you still want to do it. But on the dispatch side of things, you're spread out across several days,
Yeah.
so you don't really have that luxury or opportunity.
And I tell you what, though, Napkins, there ain't nothing more aggravating than when you ain't had no sleep and you finally get to lay down for 30 minutes and then you wake up to a dispatcher at 4 o'clock in the morning who is so happy and chipper to send you on a transfer that you want to punch him in the face.
I know the former dispatcher you're talking about.
I'm just saying.
Hey, buddy, I got one going to UK for you.
But he can
Let
make
me
a
just
mean
go
pot of
ahead and,
coffee.
yeah, the thing about that particular dispatcher is not only was he always chipper and upbeat no matter what, but he would try and tell you his entire life story or the life story of whatever patient he's sending you on, or even the history of a house if he's sending you to a house. Doesn't matter where it is. Oh, it's a Victorian that's got green shutters and tile roof and it's painted yellow and
Listen,
like,
I've been
dude,
sent to
just give
some
me the address.
counties
Just
that
give me the address.
like GPS doesn't work in, and they
Oh
they
yeah.
don't know how to get you to the address. So they try and go by landmarks, and they were
You know
like,
where
you
that
know where
barn
that
used to be?
that big tree was before that tornado took it out. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, you got to go there and then you take a right and you go to where the barn used to sit that burnt down about 5 years ago.
Dead possum on the left, then you've went
yeah.
too far. All
But I
right.
tell you what, they were good enough that they could. If you said no, they'd be able to give you every landmark. They knew every single landmark to lead you straight to that address, but they couldn't tell you the address.
Yep.
Right.
Don't get it.
So there's two more that's related to first responders. I'm gonna save the juicy one for last. By the
Okay.
way,
Okay.
shout out to Angry Vet Nation's people because the way that they preface and set these questions up is just beautiful. I've loved them so far.
All right.
The-
Go ahead and ask Taco, and I'll be right back. I think my cat's just flipped the Christmas tree again.
Okay, so Harry from Angry Vet Nation says that let's see here. God, this is uh okay, I think that messed up. Let me reload it. Hang on. Okay, Harry from Angry Vet Nation says first responders always talk about how the job is extremely stressful and most of the time leads to burnout. How do you guys in particular handle stresses of the job and burnout on the day-to-day job?
Uh, well, for the most part, it's like Medic's been saying, we get on, we play games together to kind of unwind a little bit and relax a little bit. And the problem that a lot of us encounter is we end up turning to more harmful solutions. I couldn't tell you the number of coworkers I have or have had that the way they would cope would be the second they clocked out to the second they clocked back in, they were going to drink as much alcohol as they physically could. And I mean, I don't have anything against drinking, I really don't. But it's a very dangerous thing to do, especially if you're going to drink that much. You're going to harm your body in one way or another. So I don't condone that at all. I do, however, feel like just finding things that help your body and your mind relax are the biggest keys. For me, that's been anything from diving into a book that can really grab my attention, playing games with everybody, because I mean, we get on together and we just cut up and we have a good time. Anybody who's ever watched us all on stream together knows we're a bunch of idiots when you get us together. It doesn't phase us in the slightest bit. Diving into TV shows or movies that can make you forget about what's going on around you for a while can be a good way. And you definitely need a support system, whether it's family or friends, that you can just go to and spend time with and kind of let all your other cares and worries go.
Hello, I'm back.
So for me, I think pretty much the same thing Taco said, minus the books because I'm not a big reader. But I think it's playing games, having a support system that really helps. Though, other than never mind, I'm not going to say that on stream. Anywho,
I missed the question.
yeah, I'll repeat it. Actually, I'll just give you a quick summary. Basically, how do you handle the day-to-day stresses and or burnout of the job?
Burnout, step away. I think if you hit burnout, you have to step away from it because you can't do your job the way it should be done. You won't have compassion for anything ever. I've seen people that are so burnt out when they go to patients. I mean, they are so rude. I have to apologize to the patients and the patient's family for that person. Um, I think when you hit that point, you have to walk away or at least take time off to yourself. Um, Day to day and stresses and whatnot. Uh, you kind of just go with the flow, and then you find whatever helps you relax. For me, it's being able to play games and stream and to be honest with you, this podcast, this podcast is a great stress relief and thing for me, because not only do we get to get on here and hang out and just chat, but if you're going, what I like how we kind of transitioned since last episode with medics love life. Um, if you
Medics
know
love
You
life?
mean napkins?
napkins, my bad. But if you're dealing with something or you got something bothering you, just being able to get on here and that's what we talk and discuss. It's a good outlet, and I think it's something that's really good for us, and it's one of the best things for me. Uh oh, Mike. Mike is
Is this the
next.
juicy one?
Yeah, this one's the
Mike,
juicy
are you
one.
juicy? Are you
I
juicy,
love. I
Mike?
just have to ask, Angry Vet Nation, are you all just sitting at your desks logged into the same Twitch account?
Nah, bro, they need to have a big couch. Big couch, big TV, right there it
They've
is.
just got a Bluetooth keyboard they're passing around to answer in chat.
Oh, hang on. I have to brag on Medic though. He worked 48 hours with no sleep and come home at 8:30, 9 o'clock and stay awake all day with me and the kids. Still don't know how he done it. Nicotine and caffeine and love, baby.
Big O circle with Amy typing the responses and putting who they're from.
All right.
Listen, Vet and Amy or the bomb.com.
Mike from Angry Vet Nation says there is much spectacle and debate on this topic, and I'm going to poke the bear.
Oh boy.
Most people say that 911 dispatchers are not true first responders as they don't actually leave the comfort of an office or chair and only talk on the phone and radio. Do you guys believe that 911 dispatchers are true first responders? Yes or no, and why?
So you want me to start?
Go ahead.
I think every first responder dispatcher should at least have an EMT license. I think they should have to take their CPR courses and everything because some of those calls that you can't get to, you have to be able to talk people through on what they need to be doing. One thing that where we work had mentioned that they never did do that I think would have been a good thing was every dispatcher had to do ride time with one crew for a full shift so they can see what these crews are going through because some of these crews, man, it's a miracle that they even make it home at the end of their shift. I mean, let alone to half the calls that they go on. I mean, you have to be able to not only drive and stay awake, but you have to be able to take care of a patient's life that's in your hands and know what you're doing and be confident in what you're doing with no sleep. Especially with the shift and the hours that people work, I think every dispatcher should have to get on a truck and do ride time for a full shift because they can see what these crews are having to be put through instead of, you know, I know some dispatchers, not throwing shade at them, napkins or anything, but I know some of them that they sit at the desk and sleep half the night, and then when they call to wake up to give a run to a crew, I mean they're just extremely rude because the crews are wore out, man. They've had no sleep. Most of the time they haven't even got to eat besides maybe a bag of chips and a Slim Jim at the gas station and grab an energy drink and they haven't stopped and they've been inside that truck for over 24 hours and then that dispatcher's like, well, you need to go do this, you need to go do that, while the whole time he's been sleeping at his desk. I mean, I think they should
Disclaimer, he's not talking about me.
it is not napkins, it is not napkins. But I do think that they should have to at least do ride time to see what these people are going through, and I think that every one of them should be at least certified first responder or EMT to have a background to help with the calls that we may be delayed to be able to get to. I know some places they're trying to make it mandatory that first responders are dispatchers are an EMT, or that you can't be a dispatcher. But I think they should at least have some some training, if not a full license, to be able to deal with those calls, and not just like, hey, my mom's not breathing, what do I do, and telling them how to do CPR, but anything to, you know, my dad's overdosing, what do I need to do, type deal on how you need to, or they're having a seizure, and because a lot of people don't know what to do. A lot of people go back to the old things of, this one's having a seizure, and you don't want them to bite their tongue, and this and that. You have to know what you're dealing with. So like when the crews do get there, you're not trying to not only help that patient, but you're trying to take care of everything that could have been prevented if the callers knew how to try and deal with the situation till help gets there.
Before I answer, let's go ahead and read your wife's response there.
Not all dispatchers are like napkins. Most don't know much about the medical field. If you have to make the calls on who to send where first, they need that critical thinking link. EMS already is so understaffed that it is important to send the appropriate crews to the appropriate calls. This sending BLS on a code and ALS on a stub toe is a problem. That is absolutely true. And
Uh,
the one problem you deal with in EMS is, like you kind of mentioned before, Taco, of some people just don't care because you go by a rotation on how who's sending who, and then they tried to switch it to who's closest to try and get them to, but at the same time, for example, say if Taco's already on a run and the only crew you have available is that crew that just don't care. I struggle with sometimes of and it might be just because of how heartless I can be towards people. I guess is they'd be better off not sending that crew to them. Get them in
all
the
right.
car and go yourself.
So hers kind of touches on how I would answer this anyway. I think for a dispatcher to count as a first responder, they at the very least have to go through the correct training to know how to triage calls appropriately. And like you said, they should at least have minimum training to understand how to walk people through doing certain things and tell them you can try this to see if that helps this situation or do this to do that type of thing. Um, I also think they do need firsthand experience being on these trucks to understand what they're doing to these crews. But I can actually go straight to a fairly recent example related to what she said there to show what I mean. A couple of weeks ago, all of our crews were tied up on 911 calls, and we had two come in at the same time. They dispatched a ALS crew to go on sclerosis of the liver with vomiting, which anyone who doesn't know, that's a very common symptom when you have sclerosis of the liver. And at the same time, another call dropped that was closer to this crew of a 29-year-old unresponsive, not breathing. And that crew hollered at dispatch. They were like, hey, what's that address? Dispatch refused to give it to them, told them, no, I've already dispatched you on a different run. You're going to it. Another crew happened to hear that on the radio and sent them the address, and they said, we're 5 minutes from the unresponsive call. We're going to it. That dispatcher made a scene on the radio that can be heard by people within the county, people within the company, people all over can hear that conversation.
Right.
And he's making a scene about how they don't undermine him. They have to get the proper authority to do things. And like when you do that, what's the point in that? That's basically saying, I don't care if this person dies, go to the one that vomited earlier instead. That's insanity to me. That's when they need to have the knowledge and understanding of, yeah, you're close, go to the one that's actively dying and try to help them. We'll send somebody to the one throwing up as soon as we can.
Right. Well, I mean that's like my wife mentioned in that comment. When I was just an EMT in that first county I was working in, like I mentioned earlier, you had paramedics that just thought, I make more money and I don't have to do as much. And it finally got to the point, and some things had happened that they had to change it. If it was a 911 and a medic is available, they are to go on that first, which is okay and dandy. But then you have people that are so petty. We had 2 calls drop. The first tone drop, legit, for a stubbed toe. And then soon as that call dropped, and they hadn't even gotten their truck to leave yet, a second call dropped for a cardiac arrest code in progress. And the medic legit looked at me and said, "Sorry, I have to go on the first call that come out," and sent me on the code.
Okay, so here is my take on it. And I've worked both, so this is not throwing any shade. This is from my personal experience. If you work a private dispatch center, such as a private EMS center, you are not a first responder. I would be inclined to say that you're not even really a dispatcher. You're more of a glorified secretary. Now, if you work in an actual 911 call center, I'm talking 911, what's your emergency? In my opinion, you are a first responder. You are the first person that that person talks to. You are the first person that has to calm them down, has to get the correct information, the appropriate information to get to your crews, both for safety. You have to pick up and listen to things in the background that the caller might not think to tell you. There's a lot that goes into it. Now, as far as being a licensed EMT, I think it depends on the type of center you work in. For example, the center I worked in, we were not an EMD center. We did not do emergency medical dispatch. All we did was straight 911 and CPR. We were a CPR only dispatch center, meaning if somebody called and they were having a medical emergency that needed prior intervention, we would transfer that call. We would get the required information to send a crew immediately, and then while we were doing that in the background, because we're always doing more than one thing at once, in the background, we are automatically connecting an EMD dispatcher onto the call so that they can hear what's going on. And as soon as we get the information we need to get a crew started, we can patch it over to them and they can take over on the actual medical dispatch side. So do I think it's a bad idea that all dispatchers should be EMTs? No, not at all. But me personally, I do feel them to be first responders, and that's because I've worked it. And I don't mean that to take away from any of the other first responders either, by any means. But I also don't think, I think it's disrespectful almost to not classify them as first responders. Yes, they're sitting in an office in a chair, but they've also got 15 things going on at once at any given time.
Classifying them as a first responder, I don't think you could unless they had at least that certification. Because there is legit a certification just for a first responder title, and that's basically saying I can do CPR and I can drive this crew if I have to.
Well, there's also a classification for dispatchers that can do training that is classifying them as specifically 911 dispatchers,
Right.
but they have to have that training to get that classification.
Right. But I'm saying, like, if they don't have any of the certifications to classify them as a first responder, I keep it separate and classified as a dispatcher. Not that I don't appreciate dispatchers, not that I don't think that they have to go, that they have a hard job, because some of the multitasking that they have to do, I would probably just get aggravated and punch a screen, especially if I'm, on the phone trying to get information and can't get information. I would just get aggravated and be like, "Oh my gosh, then no one's coming," and hang up because I couldn't handle that. But to classify them and say yes, they are a first responder, without having to do any of the classifications or certifications, I would say no. You ready to fight yet, Napkins?
Nope. I'm just gonna move on.
Yeah,
Let's
you
move
better
on.
back down.
All right. I'm gonna speed run this one here. No offense, Sabrina from Angry Vet Nation, but she says napkins with multiple explanation points. That's why I kind of screamed that. Can you please tell us more about your freaking story? We're up in arms over here.
Told you they're
Um,
invested. Don't you leave Sabrina hanging.
As I said earlier, at the very moment, there's too much legal stuff going on. Once that's cleared up, I promise we will tell the story. By the way,
But I will.
shout out to
Can I say something?
go ahead. Then
I
I'll
will
give this
say
shout out.
this, Angry Vet Nation. I have met this mystery woman on the phone, and I'm on the fence still. Let that linger for a little bit and see how you like it. She used my word. Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Anywho, I'm trying to process that.
Yeah. I bet she
um,
is too. She's still on here. I don't know. Is she still on here?
I just asked. Anyway, there was what was I going to say? Now you made me. Oh, shout out to this last episode. I'm not sure what we are on YouTube, but I don't know if it's because of my story, but we got over 100 streams on podcasting platforms, which is the
Really?
highest that we have gotten so far. Last I checked, it was 112 streams across all podcasting platforms.
I think YouTube, last I looked, was somewhere between 30 and 40 or 44 or something like that. The last one on Twitch was around 44. So apparently everyone is
36 on
invested
YouTube.
in your story, sir.
It's currently 36 on YouTube.
See? Awesome sauce. Is there any
All right.
other? Was that the last one? Was the big juicy one?
No, there's more. Just
Yay.
not EMS or first responder related.
I'm good with that. I'm enjoying
Um,
this part.
Angry Vet from Angry Vet Nation
Oh no.
says group question: if you could have one superpower, just one, what would it be and why? Also, do you think the why you guys ask so many questions? I thought it was supposed to be one. Anyway, it says also, do you think that private military organizations or visual antis should still be allowed? Why or why not?
I'm gonna let Taco handle this one first because he knows more about superheroes, and I got to think of a good power.
Um, I've always leaned toward I think it would be awesome to have the power of flight just because I gotta imagine it would feel exhilarating to be able to fly around all the time.
But what if it's raining?
I mean, okay,
You gonna fly in the rain?
sure, why not?
That'd be miserable.
Well, that would be better than being like Nightcrawler and only being able to teleport where you can see.
That's true. That's a crappy power. Now I gotta think of a good power.
Well, while y'all think of powers, I'll answer the second part then. Personally, I I understand the need of them. I've looked into them some. I listened to a podcast by the comedian Dan Cummins, Time Suck, and he did a whole episode on them. And I came to the conclusion after doing digging on my own afterward that they're definitely a necessary thing, whether people want to admit it or not, because they can do things that official governments can't. And as far as how they should be handled, I feel like a little bit more oversight would probably be a good thing because, just to be honest, there are documented cases of stuff going on with them that is problematic at the very least. So a little more oversight with it. But yeah, I understand the necessary need of them and I have no problem with them.
Go ahead and napkins.
So for superpower for me, and this is going to sound really lame, but I think the best superpower would be to read people's thoughts. Because if you can read people's thoughts, you'll always know who's actually true and who's telling a lie. Maybe that's my trauma from the past 8 years. Maybe. But that would be my superpower. As far as private military or vigilantes, I say absolutely. How cool would it be to see somebody dressed up as Batman running down the street?
That's
There
true.
are actually people who do that, call themselves superheroes and try and be vigilantes. There's a whole documentary on them on Prime Video, actually, and I've watched it. It's entertaining because some of them are absolutely ridiculous, and some of them actually have good intentions and have tried to do it in a way that is helpful to their communities. They try and partner with the local law enforcement agencies to set up things that would technically be illegal for the law enforcement people to do, but since they're private citizens, they can get around it.
As far as a superpower, I would probably go with invisibility. Mainly just because one, you can scare the crap out of people whenever you wanted. And then two, whenever you just want to be alone and you can't get away from everybody, all you can do is go invisible and nobody can find you. Two, on the second part of the question, I think it is necessary to have them. Because without them, I think it's hard to believe, but I think the world would be a lot crazier than what it already is.
Oh, you're absolutely right on that.
Daggone Batman, I'm telling you.
They they are able to do things that governments officially can't.
Right.
A lot of times they get contracted out by governments to do the things they can't do for them. So I
And
understand their purpose, and
I
I'm
like
fine with
that
it.
too because it's like when you can go do things that the government can't do, I mean, you're bad to the bone. There's no other way to put it. No rules apply.
All right. Brittany from Angry Vet Nation says, as a av- as a avid League of Legends player myself, I have to ask,
Oh,
who is your favorite character or role to play and why?
ooh, a fellow League of Legends player.
But I say since we already know Napkins' answer to the first half of
We
that,
do.
go
Yeah, we
ahead.
do.
Go ahead, Napkins.
So, obviously my favorite would probably be Jinx. My favorite role would be ADC, but honestly, with Jinx, I think it's just because that was the first character that I actually done good with, and I kind of fell in love with the character itself, how she plays, her almost psychotic attitude, like just all of it. I love me some Jinx.
Destroy everything.
Um, yeah, destroy everything, leave nothing. Um, if I had to pick a close second, it would probably be Briar, even though I'm kind of go back and forth between either doing great or doing trash with her. And I think it's because the same thing. She's very chaotic. She's all over the place. You can ult from pretty much across the entire map. Um, that's probably, yeah, that's my answer.
um, as far as a role, I don't really have like a favorite role. I kind of just go feel most of the time. Um, the most recent role I've tried to start doing more with support, but I'm a terrible support because I just try and KS everything. If you can't get your kill on your own, then you're not good enough. Um, Maokai has always been one of my favorite champs. Then they changed his ult, and it made me sad. But I still like him. Um, I'm actually kind of branching out more this season and trying different champs that I never tried a whole lot of. And ADCs, I'm kind of feeling pretty good with. I like Double Obama, which would be Lucian and Tristana. Um, and then I've actually started liking Xerath and Anivia a lot more. Had a pretty good Anivia game the other night, 20-5. Woohoo! Top
Um,
support, top jungle, top three. Yeah, but what's your champs, Brittany? What's your champs?
for a long time, I was a support main, and by far my favorite champ was Thresh, with Braum coming up right behind him and Morgana being tied with Braum. I've had some incredible plays on all three of them that I've loved over the years, but more recently I've gotten into top lane. I enjoy it a whole lot, and Kled has become one of my favorites to play.
I just think
Uh,
Kled has the best lines in the game.
oh yeah, he's got incredible lines that he'll throw
Ooh,
out. Like
Brittany's a little cocky right now. She can wreck with any of them.
Brittany, do
like
you only play the Rift, or do you ever play ARAM or anything? Sorry, not to interrupt. Taco, go ahead.
uh, just Cled has become by far one of my most favorite chants with his lines, and the fact that once you learn how to play Cled, you can wreck teams because they don't understand how his passive works correctly. So, uh, I mean, Medic can attest to this. The other night, a full tank build Cled, and I was wrecking a team so bad that they forfeited before we even got on their Nexus, and it was because they didn't know how to handle that passive. I could dive in, they would take away my Scarl mount. I would auto a few times, land a couple of abilities, Scarl's back before I can die, and they don't know how to deal with it. So, yeah, Cled's currently my favorite.
Rift is the only way to go, baby. Well, let me tell you something, Brittany.
You need to
You
get
need
on
to
our
get
streams and
hold.
tell that to
You need to get hold of
Callistus.
Mr. Callistus and make him realize he's going to have to get back on the Rift. Because
We've,
I
we've been
want to,
trying for months now.
I want to get him back on the Rift, and I even thought about because Schizo he's not a big League of Legends fan, but he makes it so comical that I enjoy even if I'm losing.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've mentioned maybe trying to get us on there as a full team and doing the league of I don't know Schizo and just having fun with it. But I can't get Cal to get back on the Rift. Maybe Vet and Brittany need to email Cal.
Vet, can I share policy? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Have we got Cal in trouble now?
Did we? Maybe. Now he has to be on the Rift. Oh. Employees are not allowed to play with sponsored groups.
Oh.
But if we happen to get, like if we queue up and we get queued up against her, we're allowed to put her in her place, right? Or pretend that we are anyway.
Yep, Vet says if we happen to end up in a queue with her, it's all right, but she can't actively seek us out. Too bad.
Any other
Actually,
questions?
on that note, before we got involved with the sponsorship and doing all the streaming too much, we took part in a 1v1 tournament, and
Lobby TV, here we come.
I have to say, we expected Cal to steamroll in that tournament. Granted, the first round he got screwed over pretty hard,
Yeah, it wasn't even on the right map. It was baloney.
and a lot of the people who took part in it were surprisingly good, and
But they were all
apparently,
like Heimerdinger mains with like
yeah,
300 million mastery points. It's stupid.
apparently that's what they were all into. I felt pretty proud of myself though. I came in was it fourth or third?
I think you got third.
I was proud of that showing because I honestly expected to be first out of our group,
That was
but I
actually
got lucky.
fun too. We met a guy he's in the military. He's stationed
Hmm.
in Hawaii, and he
Yep.
never had played League of Legends before until he got stationed over there because he said you ain't got nothing to do and you think you would, but here he is playing League of Legends. The guy's absolutely hilarious and comical.
Oh
That is
yeah, he
one thing that would be
commentated the entire
cool.
time.
Really cool for our channel at some point to try and do some type of tournament. That would be pretty dope.
Okay. Let's see here.
That's what the dude said. I don't know. I ain't never been to Hawaii. You
All
said
right.
you just stuck on a
Nicole.
mountain. Who?
Nicole from Angry. Nicole.
Nicole!
Nicole from Angry Vet Nation
You said that enough.
says, all of you sound like you've had pretty rough and traumatic experiences with love. If you could go back and change one thing from your past relationship, would you? And if so, why?
I'm thankful because I got my kids out of it. If I didn't have my kids, I'd be lost. Besides that, as long as I still had my kids, I'd left sooner.
Uh, for me, it's kind of a hard one to answer because, on the one hand, you want to immediately be like, well, yeah, I would have avoided this. But at the same time, if you're being honest, you have to look back and say, but without going through that, would I still be the same person I am today? So I don't know. I guess for me, I kind of lean more toward no, I wouldn't change anything just because I am who I am today because of the stuff I've been through.
I kind of agree with that. I'm gonna say
I'm gonna say you're retarded if you agree with that.
no. Here's what I'm gonna say. Hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
Though the past 8 years was really, really, really dark, and I was lied to and manipulated pretty much the entire time. If everything did not play out exactly the way that it did,
Oh, he's gonna
I
be a
would not
lovey-dovey here.
I would not be where I am today, and I would not have met the people in my life that I have in my life.
I'm gonna say you still could have left sooner. Just saying.
But if I knew everything that I knew today, like literally everything that I knew today, then yes, I would go back and change it 100%.
See, now you just contradicted yourself, sir.
No, because if I would have known everything that I know today, then I would have already met the person.
Duh.
Ugh.
All
Oh,
right,
napkins! Don't
so
encourage that.
I'm going to leave it up to you guys, but we have a hate comment that came from a Spotify listener. It was posted
Yay!
anonymously. I asked Vet if we should address it. He said if they fill out the form, they know it's got a chance to be listed on the show. So, would you guys like to hear the hate comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, from Anonymous,
Ooh.
referred by on Spotify. It says, "You guys are pathetic. All you do is spread hate and you have twisted ideas. I just want you to know that I lost my brother to addiction. We tried to help him, but he just couldn't kick it. It kept pulling him back down. I seen him literally break his soul over the stuff, sell his soul over the stuff. It broke his spirit, broke his mind, broke his heart, and ultimately broke his body. Do not tell me addiction is not a disease. Seriously, F you all."
I mean, you're
Well,
welcome to that opinion, but it doesn't change the facts that he had opportunities.
and it's not that I'm trying to spread hate about it or anything. Um, you're not the only one that's lost loved ones to drugs and addictions. You're not the only one that's seen people go through that and struggle with that. Is it a disease? No, it's not. It was their choice and they made that choice. Your brother continued to make that choice and you just admitted that he continued to make that choice. You tried to get him help. He didn't want help and he kept going back to it. That's not a disease. That's a choice.
I mean,
If you
considering
absolutely, if you know, yeah, and I get that it's a sensitive subject for people, and I understand it. I mean, we've been on the side where we're the first ones that go to them when they're dealing with. Doesn't matter if it's the overdose, if it's the withdrawal, if it's just they've took too much and they can't handle it and they're acting crazy and whatnot. We've been there. We've done that. I've been punched in the face and kicked between the legs by people that's blown out of their mind and they don't know where they are and they're just kicking and screaming and whatnot. And I've had to see the cops trying to wrestle with them because they're just you can't do anything with them. That doesn't make it a disease.
no.
If just because you're addicted to it doesn't make it a disease. It makes an addiction what it is. It doesn't mean it's a disease. You made that choice and continued to make the choice to go do it. And I understand that can be a lot to handle and it's a sensitive subject. And absolutely, you think I'm spreading hate and pathetic and whatnot. Absolutely. Come on here live and tell me I'm pathetic and we'll talk about it. Don't my thing is you want to argue with it, let's talk about it. And you if you want to come on live and tell me why it's a disease, do that. Explain to me how it's a disease because to me and from my side and my dealings with it, you made the choice for that substance, and it doesn't have to be drugs. I mean, it's the same thing as alcoholics and stuff, and having to wean yourself off of it because you've been on it so long. But making the choice of putting that down is the same thing as making the choice of picking it up and taking it.
Yeah, and considering that my ex was an addict and that's what ended the marriage, I can speak from firsthand experience that she was given every opportunity to get clean and get help and refused it all and willfully said, no, I want to be on these drugs. I want to run drugs. I want to do this and that instead of going and getting the help that she needed, even though it was offered to her. So, yeah, I don't see it as a disease in the slightest. If they want help, there's help there.
A lot of the
If they
times
don't
it's
want
because
help,
they
it's on them.
they want that feeling that it gives them. They want to feel that high that they get off of it.
Yeah,
Well,
I know that. I'm just saying that, they have opportunities. They have ways of getting the help they need if they want it.
Right.
I'm gonna say that you're the piece of crap. If you want to get on here and post anonymously and basically just scream at us and bash us, given I don't care, that's what the contact form is for. That's why I told them to leave the name as optional.
Right.
But don't hide behind a keyboard and basically just say you're wrong and not offer to come on here and explain yourself.
I mean, my thing is, even if you want to stay anonymous and call us a piece of crap, at least explain where you're coming from. All you did was say, I lost my brother and all this to this, so it is a disease. Just because
And I mean,
you lose somebody to it doesn't make it a disease.
I'll
Cancer
even
is a
go.
disease.
I'll even go a step further and say, if you want to come on the show, if you're listening, which I genuinely believe you're not, you probably listened to part of it and then was like, you know what, I'm gonna try and break these guys' spirits and make them feel crappy. But guess what? You failed. But if you are listening to this and you want to be anonymous, nobody has to know your name. Make a Discord that nobody knows who it is. Come in. We'll put a voice changer on you. We'll do this right. We'll keep you anonymous. Let's hear your side. Because as we stated before, everything that you're hearing on this podcast is coming from people that's lived it every day. They have been on the other side of it. Yes, you've been on the family side of it, and you've seen somebody who's addicted to it. You've seen their side, but you've not seen the first responder side, for one. For two, if you tried to get him help and he refused it,
You proved our point.
exactly. Because with a true disease, it can be curable. I mean,
Sometimes.
it's not always curable. With a true disease, such as cancer, and you're not going to say, "Oh, I have cancer, but I'm going to refuse my treatments," unless they say that you can do these treatments, but it ain't going to help. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
I mean, with the disease, you can always still choose treatment or no treatment, but with the disease, you had no real control over whether or not you end up with it, if that makes sense. Like,
Boys, I'm
I know
fired up
there's,
now. Let's
I
go.
know there's a handful. I know there's a handful of them out there that, yes, they are preventative
I think
or
one
preventable,
thing
but
that has started this whole thing, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad there's places that people can go for rehabs and to help them get off of it and things. But I think one thing that's happened is a lot of these rehabs and stuff is this is a disease. This is a
it's
disease,
not really your fault,
and that's what they tell them instead of saying own up to what you have done to yourself.
which is the difference between AA and rehab. So Alcoholics Anonymous tell them from the get-go, you are an alcoholic. You have to own up for your mistakes and you have to take responsibility for it and make amends. Rehab, on the other hand, tends to go the opposite way. And they're like, oh, you couldn't help it. You have a disease. Addiction is a disease. You had no control over it. To me, that's the wrong approach. And in my experience, the people I've met who have gotten clean from being drug addicts have used more of the approach that AA has of owning up to, I made this decision, I made this mistake, it's my fault, how do I make it right? And that's the problem is the the stuff out there that's designed to help them doesn't want them to take accountability for it because they don't want them to get down on themselves in the first place.
They make it too fluffy.
Yeah.
Mystery woman. So my biggest thing about it though is a disease doesn't make you crush that pill up and snort it. A disease doesn't make you take that needle and stick it in your arm, or I've seen them go under their fingernail and between their toes everywhere and just shoot up because they want that high. I mean, that's not a disease. That's you doing it to yourself.
Yeah,
It's controllable.
I mean, they're chasing after a specific feeling. It's no different than adrenaline junkies
Or I
who,
mean, is it hard to come off drugs? Yes. Like Napkins has said before, as a mindset, you have to want to stop. You have to want to put that down. It's not well. I've already started. I gotta keep doing it. No, that's not how that works.
yeah,
I think if you get it set in your mind of I'm gonna quit this and I'm not gonna do it anymore. That's the main first step you have to get to be able to quit it. And if you can do that and quit it, it's not a disease. You have how
Yep.
many people that have put it down and actually straightened their life up and whatnot. You can't do that with a disease.
Like
yeah, what,
Jalen said, you can't choose a disease.
yeah,
Right.
they're chasing after a feeling, which is no different than adrenaline junkies. They're chasing after that high of adrenaline from doing crazy things. But you don't see an adrenaline junkie walking around like, I gotta get that fix. I gotta get it. I'm gonna jump off that roof now. That'll make me feel better. No, because they understand I could get hurt. I have to do this the right way, and they plan these things out.
And you got to think, I mean, coming on here anonymously and just bashing and saying, well, it's a disease, you're retarded. My thing is, you're talking to people in a medical field. You're talking to people that see this up close, that have to deal with it, people that have to deal with mental issues, schizophrenia and all these other things. There is a fine line and a very obvious line you should be able to look at and say what's a medical problem and what's your choice that you've put on yourself. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's like I was saying, yeah, there's a handful of diseases out there that are preventable. Type 2 diabetes, HIV, herpes, things like that. But the majority of diseases you are already predetermined to get from the get-go. You can do things to increase or lessen your odds of it, but overall, your genetic makeup is already set out saying, okay, you have a high chance of ending up with lung cancer because many people in your family had it, or you have a high chance of having asthma because your parents had it, or allergies, or whatever.
My
There's a
biggest
handful of them you
thing
can prevent,
of
but
people that think it's a disease, and it doesn't matter if it's, drugs, alcohol, whatever, people that think, well, I have this disease that, I can't handle this, whatever. My biggest problem with it is when you label it and convince yourself that it's a disease, you're telling yourself that you can't control it and you're giving it too much power in the first place.
yeah.
I don't think it's a disease per se. My mom would disagree, but I don't necessarily agree with what Taco said about rehabs and AA. Ooh. Dun 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 dun.
Okay, so what about it then?
I don't know. That's all she said in the chat.
I know, I'm asking her what about it then,
Wait,
though.
wait, 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 wait. Napkins. You're calling Chad out. What are you calling Chad out for?
Oh yeah. Well, it's going to take us to another question because Chad just submitted an entry 2.5 minutes ago. Well, it was 2.5 minutes whenever I sent that message.
Okay.
And all it says is, with how much technology is evolving, do you think technology is going to end up helping or hurting first responders?
I think it's gonna make them lazy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just in the time since I got into EMS, I've seen BLS crews go from they have to do everything manually to most of them now refuse to run on a truck if they don't have a monitor that will automatically take a blood pressure for them
Right.
and all that stuff. And
I do think, though,
I disagree with it.
as technology progresses, I think they can do a lot better stuff for the medical field, and especially EMS, like being able to be able to diagnose better, like on en route. So when you get to the hospital or you call ahead, you know exactly what's going on, so that they can prepare. Um, but I do think it's going to make them a lot lazier.
Yeah,
I will
there are
say
some things
a
that are
Lucas device. It
yeah,
was
I
an
was gonna
advancement in
say
technology, and that was a godsend.
yeah, I was gonna say there are some things that definitely are a bigger benefit to the field, such as the Lucas device or improvements on ventilators when we have to take vented patients and stuff. There are other things though that
They need to invent a better pump. That way, when you're going down the road, it ain't beeping constantly.
there are other things though that are turning providers into lazier providers and
Yeah.
making them worse overall.
Yeah. Dude, when I first started in EMS, I think it was my second day on ride time, and I was in the back of the truck with my preceptor, and we had a patient in there, which it was like, just your typical of, I think it was a doctor's appointment or something. And I was like, well, you want me to go ahead and get vitals or, whatever. And the preceptor literally said, let me show you how we do it BLS. We make it up. True
Wow.
story. You know how
See,
many new
anytime
nurses and CNAs don't on now how to do manual BP?
probably
Don't
as many
know.
new EMTs. That's one thing. If we have students,
I don't think my wife can
me,
cop.
me and the medic I run with, if we have students up on the truck, first thing we tell them is, "All right, get me vitals." And when they reach for the monitor, we tell them, "No, don't use that. Use the manual,"
I used to
because
have
we want to know they
students that
know how
refused
to
to
do it.
run with me because when they got in there, I gave them the manual cuff and told them
Yeah.
that's what they had to use first.
Well, we have to know they know how to use their skills properly before we can trust them to do anything.
That's the crazy part, though, Like, new nurses and CNAs that don't know how to do a manual BP are in there taking care of your family right now.
All right, before we go any further, I just want to give a huge shout out to Angry Vet Nation for sponsoring the podcast. If you are a
Who's
first
Angry
responder,
Vet Nation? What do they do?
Angry Vet Nation is a organization that sets out to help first responders and veterans. You have to be a first responder or veteran
Oh,
that
go.
want
You made that
to
really clear. That was good.
get into streaming or gaming. They can set you up with a gaming rig, professional streaming gear, mentoring. They do everything that they can and need to do to make sure that you can succeed. So if you are interested in signing up, you have to be a first responder or veteran. Go online to angryvetnation.org and click apply for services. At
there,
this
there is a backlog.
Yep, that's what I was getting ready to ask. Can we get a ETA on the backlog?
Because it was up there pretty high. But with that being said, don't be discouraged on it. Even if it takes some time to get through the process, make sure if you were interested, you drop that application. 6 months currently on the backlog. Going up
Going up.
daily. Get on that list if you were
Don't
interested.
hesitate. Go today.
Bro, we just wrote you a commercial. Daggone. I tell you what, um, I think we need to get Vet to send out some emails to Callistus and Schizo, and it should be a mandatory thing that they are at least in one episode on this podcast. Because one, Schizo would get so upset, it would be absolutely hilarious, and well, I think everybody would get a good kick out of Cal, and I think he would do him some good to get on here and discuss some things. And plus, you need to email him and tell him to get on the Rift. Huge shout out to Beyond the Quest. We have 40 referrals from this show alone.
That's awesome.
Oh, that means at least 40 people listen to us and then probably send in a hate comment.
So I would absolutely love to get Callistus on here sometime with us anyhow, just because he is the only combat vet in our group.
Right.
And we love him to death. We know he goes through a lot and we do all we can for him, but I think he could bring a new approach for our listeners to things. And I mean, he's funny as a barrel of monkeys anyhow, because he just really don't care. He just lets it fly. And that's one thing we love about him, why he
We
fits
will
in
have
with us.
we will have to update our content warning on that episode though.
Oh, yeah.
I do want to get him on here one episode too, because he has mentioned some things, and I think he's gonna have a different perspective. Like, for example, we just discussed, if it's a disease or not, and he's made some comments to me before about drugs are like the same thing as with alcohol, about it being a disease. So I'm interested on to hear where he's coming from. It maybe he can make sense of anonymous keyboard warrior's comment or something to me, because it's hard for me to view it like they do. You know what I mean? Especially with no explanation to back it up.
Right.
Which, as I've said
Also,
before, we may have to schedule that as a special episode on a random time just to be able to get him on.
I do also want to give a shout out to Angry Vet Nation, because this has been the longest episode that we have recorded to date.
Yep. We are a little over 2 hours. And that's given somebody was slacker.
Oh my lord.
Bro, you admitted you're a slacker last episode.
Sometimes.
See? Just admitted it again. At least you're owning up to it. I have to say, the questions and that we've been answering and stuff, getting those in, that has been really fun. I've enjoyed that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
what I
probably going to be
like.
the title of this episode. Episode 4, Q&A with me
And-
on the quest.
And Bet, I'll give you a shout out. I loved yours, how you went from whimsical to fairly serious topic with two different things. That was pretty great.
I wonder if we can ask back, Vet, what would be your superhero power? Dun, 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 dun.
Next week, I expect every one of them who wrote in from Angry Vet Nation to have submitted their answer on what their superpower would be.
Knowing what the whole office is.
Yep, every one of them.
Angry Vet Nation is actually the Avengers.
Oh, he says
Invisibility!
same as
He
you.
gets it! Great minds think alike, and so do ours.
Granted, some of the cryptic stuff he's told us over the last year, I could kind of piece it together why he would want that.
Right.
Now I'm curious what Amy's would be. Doo-doo-doo-doo. So I asked in the chat, I want to ask you two. You think I should get the wife on an episode one day?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely gotta
absolutely.
have
Absolutely.
definitely gotta have her on one episode.
It's majority win in here. I don't think she's gonna be able to argue it much. Just saying.
Just when she comes on, she can't do her normal storytelling, because then we'd be in a 3-hour podcast for one story.
Yeah, with 10 stories tied into it.
Yeah, it would sound like it was a soap opera being tied together.
Flying, too busy, would never need another flight ticket. What if it's thunderstorming? I'm telling you. You ever
You
rode a
fly above it.
motorcycle and it start raining, or you get
You
hit with a
fly
bumblebee?
above the clouds.
You fly above the clouds and you can't see where you're going.
Superman never has that problem.
And Superman just dies by kryptonite. Like, I don't know what you want. Here's a rock. Now you're in trouble.
Special meteor. At least
My
it's better
bad.
than special. It's better than the Green Lantern, who's beat by the color yellow.
That's true. I don't know. And besides invisibility, I would like to be the Hulk. Oh yeah,
That could be pretty cool,
right.
especially if you could choose which iteration of Hulk you wanted to
Wouldn't
be.
care. Just be the Hulk. Smash. Hulk smash. And then you're no longer Hulk and you get away with it.
See, I'd like to be the Joe Fixit Hulk, where he's smart enough to run a mafia empire, but he's still as strong as the Hulk.
Brittany ironically said super strength. Is it a league player thing? Maybe.
Oh, because you said Hulk.
Maybe. Could be. Then you smash all those people and you go on with it. Behind the scenes, I hate the camera. Ask Medic if he's on camera. I'm crossing the floor to get the cats. It's true. If I have this pulled up and the camera's up, she literally just opens the door and then crawls because she don't want to get seen on the camera.
Yeah, but she wouldn't have to be on camera to be on here.
Yeah, put her in a corner with a headset.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
I mean, we could always put Discord on her iPad and let her do that.
Any other things, fellows?
That's all for the Q&A. Anybody got anything they want to say?
I'll
Questions,
say
comments?
this much. Last night we did try out the new free-to-play game, Marvel Rivals.
We
you,
did.
You have the videos waiting on you to edit them, so you'll get our full review on our YouTube page.
Yes, for
at
those that
Slim
haven't
Chance
heard
Gaming
of that, it is a free-to-play game they just released, and it's already apparently competing pretty high with games like Overwatch. And they've teamed up with I think Fortnite right now, trying to get some rewards from it and things. It's a pretty fun game. It's going to take a little bit of learning, but they've got some ironing out to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've got some things they'll need to work on, but that's all in the full review. That'll be up on YouTube at some point when Napkins has the time to get to the videos. So check out
Slacker.
our YouTube channel at Slim Chance Gaming Crew on YouTube.
True
So,
that.
reach out to us. Leave us. Oh my gosh, word vomit. Leave us any questions, comments, piercing critical insights, or be a raging keyboard warrior online at angryvetnation.org and click Be on the Quest, or send an email to btq@slimchancegaming.com. Do we have any kind of updates as far as the website goes, Vet or Amy?
But I will say, even if you want to be anonymous and just yell at us, I'm good with that too.
Yeah, we can deal with it. We have thick skin.
Yeah.
But remember, we're not spreading hate.
Or are we?
Also, if you're on Twitch and you're following along with this, you can follow each of us on Twitch for different gameplays and stuff. The links are listed there on the side. They're also listed on McMedic's page.
Yep. Gonna have to start getting some more streams out too from everybody. Still in progress, ironing things out. Also, we aren't getting you guys numbers, Medic. Are you submitting them? What are they talking about, Napkins?
I've been submitting those at the end of every episode.
See, it's all
So-
Napkins' fault, not mine.
This is awkward.
Yeah, so It's all Napkins' fault.
Oh, see? It's your fault, medic.
Well, you didn't
Ha!
tell me nothing. You're just one supposed to keep me in order.
Just tell him what he needs to do and he'll do it.
Yeah, I'll have Napkins figure it out what I gotta do. Indeed.
It's literally just a
We
contact
will.
form that you have to fill out that we put our viewers' numbers on.
Oh, gotcha. Well, you're the one that sees the views, so you will have to help me do that anyway. Anyway, anything else? We are at 2 hours and 15 minutes, boys.
Nothing I can think of.
No, I think
Taco? Going once.
I think that pretty much does it for us
Going
today.
twice. Alright, so appreciate everybody stopping by. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode where we'll probably get some hate responses, and I'm excited for it. Are you guys going to, or are you thinking about going to more than one episode a week? I would be down to do more than one episode a week. But it kind of, we got to figure out what
Yeah,
What
that
all
would be kind of hard, to be
Napkins
honest.
has got going on at the moment. The only other option we may be able to swing would be doing, maybe an evening episode at some point, but that would be about the only one we got able to do. We're losing our
the
Friday
Friday
show? I was
We
gonna
didn't
ask
even
what
know
the
about it.
Friday show was, cause I was gonna look into it.
That's disappointing.
We may try and do some talking and discussing and try and work out to do a second day. I would be down for that.
Yeah, if we can figure out how we could do it appropriately to still keep it going with Spotify and stuff, maybe a evening one that we could get Cal in on.
It's another podcast. They fought and splitting up. Final episode is supposed to be this Friday. I gotcha. Well, see, that's one good thing about us. We fight. We just get over it.
We suck it up.
It's gonna be tense. Oh, you're gonna have to email me and let me know so
Yeah,
I can
go
watch
ahead
it.
and plug
I will
that.
get on there and help spread drama. I mean, watch it.
Plug
listen
that
to it.
real quick for us so we can watch. They did it live. That's even better.
That's great.
Yeah, we need to know what this is, how we can find this, because now I'm interested.
That's honestly, that's hilarious. Maybe they're anonymous.
They fought over our last episode.
About Napkins' love story. What do you mean there was banjos?
What's that mean?
I will email you once I find out if they're still going to record this Friday. Okay. Thank you.
Sounds great.
So I think it's going to wrap this episode up. I will get back to you and let you all know in an email if we can try and work out a second day, because I do think that would be pretty cool to try and do.
Yeah,
It
I
might-
think an evening show might be a good idea. Like,
we
I
could-
could see that.
If we can work out at least one evening, it might be easier to get Callistus and Schizo in too, which would be nice. I've got a couple people from work that want to try and maybe be on one episode to try and discuss some things. It would have been a really good episode today for it, which I told them I'd do some discussing with y'all and figure that out too. Getting more people on, guests on, I think that would be a fun thing to do. So we'll try and work that out. Until next time, love y'all. Jeez, like more. Bye!
Bye.
From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold. First responder, hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat. Slim Chomp's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. journeys meet. From the fires of life to the gaming heat, Slingshot's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold, first responder, hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat, Slingshot's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat, Slingshot's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last stand, we're chasing truth with controller in hand. Faith, adventure, stories untold, first responder, hearts brave and bold. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat, Slingshot's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the journeys meet, from the fires of life to the gaming heat, Slingshot's crew, come join the ride, with McMedic, Napkins, and Taco as your guide. Beyond the quest, where the stories grow, faith, fire, and games in the world we know. Adventure calls, the table is set, let's take the leap, our best quest yet. From the first light to the game's last